Okay, today we're going to talk about a very lopsided edition of Raw, and I'm also going to discuss Vince McMahon on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. But of course, before I get started, let me mention something right off the top. I leave tomorrow morning, and it's going to be incredible. So, let's talk the last time we're going to be talking about WWE before I get back from Orlando, and that is last night's edition of Monday Night Raw, which of course was hosted by the anonymous Raw General Manager, or so it seemed. So the show started off with the alert, and of course the lights flashing on and off. I'm sure someone loved flipping that switch over and over and over again. Every single time it's like, hey John, go over there and just flip the switch, and flip the switch, and flip the switch, and flip the switch. And it's like, I don't want to keep flipping the switch. Well, keep flipping the switch. So, the anonymous Raw General Manager, the podium is out there at ringside, and Michael Cole, smug as ever, comes up to the top of the podium, and he basically says the words from the email, like always. He says, I'm back and I'm not happy. This company needs a strong leader, and that leader is me. Tonight, live, here comes John Cena. Cena comes out to interrupt and basically says that the anonymous Raw General Manager and Brock Lesnar have one thing in common. They both show up once a year. Ouch, burn. So Cena is interrupted by alerts upon alerts and lights going off and on and off and on and off and on. Cena brushes past Michael Cole, kind of shoulder checks him, and basically takes the laptop and closes it. That's all he did. He closed it. He didn't destroy it like Chris Jericho did. No, he just closed it. So Hornswoggle will not be bothering anyone tonight, apparently. So here comes Seth Rollins out with J&J Security. He says, John, you're great at taking credit for things that you didn't do, obviously. You didn't win anything at Survivor Series. As a matter of fact, I pinned your shoulders to the canvas, and you didn't win anything. I eliminated you. If it wasn't for Sting, the Authority would have been victorious, and everything would have went on business as usual. But don't forget, Dolph Ziggler battled insurmountable odds, 3-on-1, and beat every single one of them. Is the WWE really better with the Authority out of power? And the fans, of course, chant yes. Who's next? Is it going to be JBL in charge, or maybe Batista, or possibly Eric Bischoff? It's going to be a guessing game, and depending who the general manager is, you may have to do one thing one week, and then completely build yourself back up the next. With the Authority, at least you would know who was in charge from day one. Rollins pretty much begs to get the Authority brought back because John Cena is the only one that can actually do it, and Cena says the Authority are fired and they're not coming back. Now you're simply just a normal dude who's got to earn everything all over again. Excuse me. Seth again begs for the Authority to be brought back, and Cena's like, ask me nicely. And Rollins is like, will you please bring back the Authority? Cena's like, get down on one knee. And the alert goes off, and Michael Cole grabs the laptop, opens it, and says, John Cena, you will battle Seth Rollins in a TLC match at TLC, and if you lose, you will no longer be the #1 contender. And it was furthermore went on to it basically saying that if he is not the #1 contender, they will announce a new one at a later date. But before that could be completed, Rollins attacks Cena. So then they brawl for a bit. Cena fights off Mercury and Noble, and Kane comes in looking like a deadbeat dad, like always, with his awesome work pants. Chokeslam Cena. Rollins gets a table, and here comes Ryback, or the Ryback in this case. Spinebuster to Kane. Meat hook to Jamie Noble after hitting Joey Mercury. He does the press slam into the over-the-shoulder power slam to Rollins, the old Goldberg spot. Kane grabs a chair, hits Ryback from behind. Here comes Eric Rowan, and a big boot to Kane on the floor, and he tosses Jamie Noble out. Rowan starts beating up Seth Rollins. Here comes the Big Show. He attacks Rowan from behind, nails him with the ring steps, and actually, when his head jerked back, he actually hit the the top of his head on the bottom of the steps, which busted him open legitimately, so they got off him immediately. Obviously, the camera can't show that. Here comes Dolph Ziggler. He runs down, he posts the Big Show, and he puts a ladder in the ring. He goes to do that, and Luke Harper stops him and sandwiches him between the ladder, drops the ladder on Dolph. Harper with the right hand to the right hand to Cena, and in the ring, he pinballs with the Big Show, knockout punch on Cena. The table's set up, and Rollins throws the Roman Reigns taunt out, and, of course, yells, and this allows for Mercury and Noble to literally be the Shield, and the Cerberus bomb through the table leaves John Cena laying. That's the end of the segment. This thing lasted almost 30 minutes. This was way, way, way too long. You could have easily condensed this into maybe a 10, 15-minute segment, but no. We had to have things on top of things happen. Too many alerts, but I understand that there. I would have cut a couple of the bit of the promo from Cena and Rollins. It was alright for what it was, but I mean, like, it was too long. It was way too long. It seems like they were just killing time. This was definitely a filler to start the show, and basically just done to set up the fact that we're getting John Cena and Seth Rollins in a TLC match, which would make more sense. Well, we're not. We're getting Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose in a TLC match. We're getting John Cena and Seth Rollins in a tables match. Okay, here's the problem I have with this. If you're not going to have the WWE World Heavyweight Championship on the line, being defended at the last pay-per-view of the year, the smartest thing you could do would be to take the feud that would have been a contendership to the World Championship feud and give it the TLC treatment. Now, don't get me wrong. I got no issues in wanting to see Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose in a TLC match. But I think it makes more sense from a storyline perspective to see John Cena and Seth Rollins in a TLC match, and not just a throwaway tables match. Cena's had a lot of throwaway tables match, i.e. the matches against Wade Barrett. But the thing about it is I think that there would have been a lot more money to be made with a TLC match. I'm pretty sure we're getting Dolph and Harper in a ladder match, which makes perfect sense now. So they're not going to go with Harper and Dolph a couple weeks before or a week before, and then they're going to do Dolph and Seth Rollins, because I thought that's what they do. No, I completely forgot about Cena. Whoops. Never do that. I would never forget about John Cena, because obviously no one else does. So we're going to do Cena and Rollins in a tables match. We're going to do Kane and Ryback in a chairs match. We're going to do Dolph Ziggler and Luke Harper in a ladder match, which is going to be awesome, and I can't wait to see it. And we're going to do Bray Wyatt and Dean Ambrose in a TLC match. Okay. Everything's laid out on the line. Cena gets laid out, all the faces get laid out, and that's the end of that. Alright, right here, JBL started throwing something down our throats that I really don't like. And take that out of context, if you started watching this video right here somehow, you probably have no idea what I'm about to talk about. And that is the term of Big Red. Yeah, apparently Eric Rowan, according to Talladega Nights, is the kind of gum that you chew and then spit out. Or if you're in this town and you're on one side of the city that I'm in, then Big Red is the gum you chew and then spit out, because obviously the crosstown rivals are the Big Reds. But that's another story altogether. I don't care about sports with a Z. But the thing about it is you have everything thrown into one opening segment. You basically just blow your entire load on the entire segment. Like, basically what you do is you pretty much take everything you have in your gun barrel and you just fire it out in the opening segment and hope that it sticks. And completely just not give a damn about the rest of the show until we get to the main event segment. This show was, like I said, very lopsided, and I'm a lot more excited to talk about the podcast afterwards than I am about this show in general, because as I was talking to Adam Martin from WrestleView and the Train Adam podcast, I would state that he's just as fed up about what's going on as I am, and I'm telling you right now, the fact that I have to miss next week's Raw, which is a Slammy Awards special hosted by Seth Green, who actually is a wrestling fan, so it may not play off too bad, and unfortunately I have to miss NXT next week, which I'm not happy about. I might try to find a way to watch it. I mean, I do have a little bit of time in the hotel when there's no parks open, so you never know what might happen. With the triple powerbomb being done Shield style, with Rollins taking the reins, literally, and doing the exact same thing Roman Reigns used to do, and Joey Mercury and Jamie Noble playing the part of Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in the Shield, I think that actually does work. I think it would have made more sense if they would have done last week's match and they came out in Shield gear. I think that would be awesome. Like, they're coming out in Shield gear so they could try to impress Seth Rollins. I think that is exactly what you do. And Mercury and Noble haven't lost a step in the ring, so I would think that this would be a good opportunity to put them in the tag team division. Because the tag team division, as we learn in a couple segments later, is in extreme disarray right now. Now, this was supposed to be Cyber Monday. Obviously, Cyber Monday has a different annotation to people that it is the shopping day. It's the shopping day after Black Friday, Black Weekend, Black Thursday, whatever you want to call it. On Monday, there's all sorts of deals on the internet. Like, you buy your stuff online, you get a lot of deals on Cyber Monday. Well, Cyber Monday was the official, theme of this edition of Raw. And Cyber Monday, you would think, would be we get to pick all the stipulations or to pick some of the matches. Don't think, not a good idea. Because when it comes down to it, we got to pick a couple things, but that was it. That was it. An entire 3-hour episode of Raw, we only got to pick a couple things. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, it made sense that we could have picked the final team in the Tag Team Turmoil match. We had 5 teams already listed to determine the number 1 contenders for Miz and Mizdow at TLC. But no, they didn't go that direction. They should have, but they didn't. I don't know, you could have done what made sense, like Slater Gator, Los Matadores, and J&J Security. They could have all been competing to determine the last team in the match. Let's say J&J Security won, and now the Authority have a chance to go after the tag team titles. Even though they're not the Authority anymore because Triple H and Stephanie are gonzo from television for the time being, I would think that they're still basically a stable, so why not? Why not try to impress the former boss? When he comes back, he can take back over and he could be impressed, like, yeah, you got the tag titles for us, thank you, we appreciate that. Because there's really not any tag teams that, well, there's teams you could throw together if you really want to in the Authority stable without Triple H and Stephanie that could go after the tag team titles, but it doesn't really make any sense because obviously they're heels. But if you put J&J in there, you could have them steal the titles and you could turn Miz and Mizdow babyface. I think that'll eventually happen, unless they just split them apart before it does. But with what happened last night with The Miz and Naomi, I don't think that they're going to go that direction, at least not for the time being. So, officially made during the break on the app, which is the first time I've heard them talk about the app in quite a while. Then again, sometimes these weeks kind of run together. It's The Big Show and Eric Rowan for the first time in a singles match. And the main event is a 6-man tag with Ryback, Dolph Ziggler, and John Cena against Kane, Luke Harper, and Seth Rollins. Okay, so it's time for Tag Team Turmoil. Tag Team Turmoil, a 5-team, not 6-team, elimination match to determine who's going to face off against Miz and Mizdow at TLC. We started off with Goldust and Stardust, and they're facing off against Big E and Kofi Kingston of the New Day. New Day just debuted on SmackDown. Already they lose. But it's basically done so they can start their feud with Goldust and Stardust, so I don't have a problem with that. So they start early, and Stardust ends up eating the Midnight Hour, which is the big ending. It was, in Kofi's case, it was more of a face buster. In Xavier Woods' case, it was more of a DDT. But it was the big ending, middle rope face buster combo. Apparently it's being called the Midnight Hour. I was calling it the Revelation, that's the only cause I only had a name for it. Apparently I will use that name for later on. So, you have this, Stardust and Goldust are first eliminated. Yay, so much for them getting a title shot again. Well, it makes sense given the fact you have heel champions, so you have to have a babyface win, right? The next team that comes out is the new thrown together team of Tyson Kidd and Cesaro. I have zero issues with this. If they want to push these two as a team, if this is how we get Cesaro to get on television, get over, and win matches, I have no problem with this. So, Goldust and Stardust attack Xavier Woods from behind after already being eliminated. They run back out so they could attack him, and this allows Kofi to be distracted. He gets rolled up from behind by Tyson Kidd, tights hooked, 1, 2, 3, and the New Day are gone. Here comes the Usos. Oh, great. Well, now you know immediately the Usos are winning this, and I don't like this because so stale. Oh my god. Tyson Kidd eats a Samoan splash, and JBL thinks the match is over, and hopefully Vince is yelling in his headset, "You dumb idiot, why do you not realize there's one more team?" Something like that. But of course Vince is getting ready for his podcast with Stone Cold Steve Austin, so he probably doesn't care. And JBL does not get chided or quiet down after this. No, here comes the last team, and it's Adam Rose and the Bunny. They come out, and this match is basically ended when Rose and Bunny argue. The super kick, the Samoan splash on Adam Rose finishes it. Naomi is watching in the back. The Miz shows up, and of course Damien Sandow's with him. And he says, I'm going to vote for you to be the tag team partner of AJ. Another thing, apparently, we're going to get to vote for tonight via the app. And they're going to face off against the Bella Twins, AJ, and a partner of the universe's choosing. So the Miz basically says, I saw your video, and I know some directors, obviously. And he says, how about I can give you my card, and I'll give you the card of this director. And Naomi's like, yeah, thank you. And Miz walks away, kind of flirting with her, kind of giving her the eyes and everything like that. And sure enough, Miz Dow walks up after Miz is already off camera, takes an imaginary business card, hands it to Naomi, and will not leave until Naomi takes the imaginary business card. And that's the end of that. Okay. Alright. Vince arrives to the building, and I thought it was funny because Michael Cole shows how out of touch he is with reality, and he calls the show that Seth Green is on The Family Guy. There is no The in Family Guy. Eric Rowan's got his Rubik's Cube, and he's there with Tom Phillips, and Phillips basically used his journalistic integrity to realize that Eric Rowan has got a lot of skeletons in his closet. The fact he's got a high IQ, and he is a winemaker, and apparently he's also a guitar player. And he doesn't regret in targeting the Big Show because the Big Show is a bully. And during this entire promo, he was working with the Rubik's Cube, and he gives it to Phillips completed. So, Eric Rowan is an idiot savant, apparently. I don't have a problem with this. I think this works just fine. He's got a childlike state, but he is extremely smart. Okay, that's fine. Eric Rowan and the Big Show have a short match, which of course you can't really do anything right away because obviously you're saving this feud because this is going to be a big one at least. Big Show sends Rowan into the steps on the outside, he drops the steps on a Rowan, and his head hits the steps, like I was talking about earlier. Vince shows up in the back, and he's all jovial, and Renee walks up to him, and Vince says he's happy to be on the network, happy to be on Stone Cold's podcast, and he says it's going to be fun. We get our next match. It is Fandango with Rosa Mendez taking on Jack Swagger, or at least that's what we thought it would be. Fandango comes out to the new Enrique Iglesias Balamos ripoff, and it's alright, but Rosa does not seem to fit his dance partner at all. She's very, the character that Rosa Mendez is portraying right now is very silent and very boring and very not caring. I do like the new heel Fandango, but really didn't get anything out of this because there was no match. Swagger doesn't come out to his music the first time, he doesn't come out to the music the second time, and apparently we have switched from Oklahoma to Portland, Oregon, because you have Zeb Coulter clutching his knee, screaming why, like Nancy Kerrigan back in the day, and of course, Jack is over there, and that's the reason why, because Zeb got attacked, and that's the reason Swagger didn't come out for a scheduled match against Fandango. Well, that's the end of that. Rusev and Lana come out. Rusev was basically forced, no, he wasn't basically, he was forced to recite the Pledge of Allegiance of the United States, of course not being a U.S. citizen, or in gimmick United States citizen, or if he didn't do so, he would have to defend the United States Championship against everyone. 19 men tried, 19 men failed. Rusev is the best United States champion ever. I was thinking this actually might be something for somebody to run out, but they didn't go that direction at all. He says, those that do not listen have been broken, just like Zeb Coulter, and we demand that you respect Rusev and the real pledge. So Lana does the pledge of Russia, and it's kind of funny. The flag, which it works really well, because obviously she was tried to be forced to do the U.S. pledge, and now there is the Russian pledge. Flag drops. Here comes Swagger. Swagger and Rusev brawl, and Rusev gets tossed in the barricade about 4 times. The referees break it up, and that's the end of that. So we are going to go into Swagger and Rusev in a rematch of their feud. Okay. We get a promo for 2K15, one of the fantasy matchups. It's Sting and The Undertaker, which we're never going to see now. But I have no problem with being Sting Triple H at WrestleMania 31. No issues with that. Damien Mizdows in for singles action against Fernando of Los Matadores. He goes for a sunset flip, does Fernando, and it's countered in the figure 4, which is applied perfectly. Miz is on commentary. Jimmy Uso comes out, punches Miz right in the jaw, and says, "Stay away from my wife." And you see Jimmy in the background, you see Jay in the background kind of laughing, was Miz got KO'd, Chris Tucker style, and Friday, you know what happens to Debo, you got knocked the F out. That's basically what it seems like that's what Jey Uso wanted to say, but they didn't go that direction. I'm honestly surprised, given the fact that some of the creative teams seem to be movie buffs, so you could tell by the way that they play certain things and the reason they do things. And don't forget the Usos and John Cena were stealing the Matthew McConaughey, from The Wolf of Wall Street, so yeah, there's always that. Next segment, Bray Wyatt in action against R-Truth, another match we've seen before. He ducks the axe kick, Uranagi, and he drops Truth forehead first on the ring apron, which of course is the hardest part of a professional wrestling ring, which I know because I've landed on that, and it's no give whatsoever. There's nothing there. It's basically just bam, you hit, and you don't bounce or anything. You just but you're done. So it looked like he was trying to DDT him on the apron, but basically he held him in a front face lock and used the back of his forearm to club him down into the ring apron. Kind of basically blunt force, is pretty much what happened. He gets on the mic, and it's after he tosses in chairs and a ladder, and of course he tells the story of Jacob's ladder, how appropriate. He said it led to heaven. The dream of this great ladder is completely different with Bray. He says he praises no one. He laughs at insects like Dean Ambrose. He sees tables, ladders, and chairs. Tables, ladders, and chairs. And of course the crowd are chanting, "Oh my, oh my." It doesn't have to be this way. And here comes Ambrose. He pulls Bray out of the ring. They brawl. And Bray is on the announce table. Ambrose pulls out a ladder, daring to jump. The referees try to stop him. And Bray escapes. But Ambrose still attacks. Ambrose destroys the rocking chair as Bray watches on from ringside, being held back by the referees, and Ambrose stands out under the ladder, proof positive that if he loses, that bad luck thing about standing under a ladder, it does apply. Excuse me. So we get the Bella Twins in tag team action against AJ Lee and the partner of the universe's choosing. Naomi wins. And Nikki's loud on calling spots in this match. AJ hits a Shining Wizard on Nikki, and that's the end of that. Locks on the Black Widow, and the Divas Champion tabs. So after this, we get a very bright spot for Sarah and Disney when we get to see Santa Mick. Yeah, Mick Foley dressed up as Santa Claus, it makes perfect sense for him to be. And he is shilling for WWE Shop for Cyber Monday, and he's got a very gorgeous elf with him, and that would be the official debut on television of his daughter Noelle. So yeah, how appropriate. Santa Mick and Noelle, given the fact that it's Christmas themed and she's dressed like an elf. So yes, I was very happy to see this because obviously I'm becoming a big fan of Noelle Foley. She's smart, she's beautiful, and I really enjoy her segments on Ringside or Riot on ringsidecollectibles.com. Good stuff there, and hopefully she will be on television again sometime soon. So Paul Heyman comes live via satellite, because he can bring it live via satellite too, and he says that Brock's appearances are special, and they're must-see. If John Cena does get by Seth Rollins, well, he'll get destroyed once again, but if he doesn't, then maybe if Rollins is named #1 contender, maybe the apology that Rollins gave Heyman for curb-stomping Brock Lesnar at Night of Champions will be rescinded. How about maybe The Undertaker? Well, he's lost his everything after facing Brock Lesnar, or maybe Sting, but that wouldn't have to be billed as a retirement match because it would be a retirement match. Maybe Brock Lesnar against the entire locker room. Well, the entire locker room would be, of course, at a disadvantage. He'd eat through them all. He who has the gold has the power, and that man is Brock Lesnar, who will not be on Raw next week, even though he's been promoted like crazy, but whatever. Nice to see Heyman on television. So, we get our main event about less than 30 minutes, more than 30 minutes before the top of the hour. It's I think it was 10, 15, 10, 20 when they started their introductions, which of course are almost 10 minutes there. Main event time, John Cena, Dolph Ziggler, and Ryback against Seth Rollins, Luke Harper, and Kane. This match was all over the place. we got into the finish here. Obviously, finishers galore happened, and it ended up being an AA by Cena, which, well, okay, well, I'll go start from there. So Dolph gets tagged in, Luke Harper gets tagged in, clothesline, knocks Kane off the ring apron, hits the charging splash in the corner, reverse neckbreaker, heartstopper elbow. So he tosses off the exclamation point DDT, hits the name dropper, Rollins makes a save. Cena goes to the top rope, hits a flying body press on everyone, partners and enemies. He goes for the AA, gets stopped, Kane with a big boot, Ryback with the over-the-shoulder power slam, and Rollins with a springboard knee strike. Rollins gets hit with the exclamation point DDT by Dolph, and Dolph runs into the layout, spinning side slam from Luke Harper. Harper sets up with a set-out powerbomb, Dolph floats over, sunset flip, 1, 2, 3. Match over, everyone brawls. Big Show comes out, headbutts Ryback, Dolph, and Cena somewhat. Rowan grabs the ring steps, and he cracks Harper, then he nails Kane, and then Dolph whips Rollins into Rowan's steps because he's holding them. Big Show goes for a double choke slam on Ryback and Rowan, and he eats a super kick from Ziggler. Cena AA's the Big Show, and they hold the Big Show for Eric Rowan, and Rowan nails him with the steps. John Cena's music plays after Eric Rowan stands tall over the Big Show, and that's the end of the show. Yeah, it is just all over the place. Yeah, it is okay. I mean, I've seen better, I've seen worse. This Raw was like, Tag Team Turmoil was okay. It was an okay match. Rowan and the Big Show had to be short. There was no Fandango Swagger match because that never happened. Swagger now feuding with Rusev again, apparently. The women's match, nothing to write home about. Mizdow with a squash on Fernando. Bray Wyatt squash on Truth. Heyman returns. I like seeing Noelle Foley on my television again. The main event was okay. Yeah, that was Raw. Screw this. Let's talk about the podcast. And thanks to a website called WrestlingNews.co, which I know a lot of sites have it now, I got this originally from them. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to look upwards on this, I apologize in advance, but what we're going to do is I'm going to go over everything that was said in the podcast and some of my thoughts and opinions on them. So we're going to start with the fact that right away, Stone Cold asked the question, how's the network doing? Vince kind of backpedals a bit and says, subscriptions are good. I don't buy that. There's 95% satisfaction level. I think there's probably more than 5% people unsatisfied by the network. But obviously, I'm not one of them. I'm definitely in the 95%, so yeah. But in the 90th percentile here, I'm not in the 10% at all when it comes to this. Vince says they hope to have the issue with the United Kingdom not having access to the network resolved by the beginning of next year. So, we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, it was like, Vince said it was like a start and a stop, but it could have worked. I'm sure it probably could have worked. It's a multi-billion-dollar, or sorry, in this case, multi-million-dollar company. I think WWE's lost a couple zeros along the way, so I can't really call it a multi-billion-dollar company. Vince says it may take time, but it will meet expectations, and they're giving the fans exactly what they want. This was an entire thing that was done the entire time. He says we're going to give the fans what they want. Obviously, the fact they're pushing Dolph Ziggler now is something that a lot of the fans want. Austin asks the tough questions. He does this the entire time. He's like, are you in tune with the fans? Austin says he just got done watching 3 hours of pro wrestling, and Vince, of course, stops him and says, pro wrestling is what my dad did. This is now sports entertainment. We're here to tell stories. Just like he said in Beyond the Mat, we make movies. Exactly what he said. And literally, WWE makes movies. A lot of really, really bad should be straight to DVD movies. Most of them are, but yeah. There's some that kind of sneak out every once in a while. Vince says he thought Bray Wyatt looked good tonight, and he thought Dean Ambrose looked good tonight, and he enjoyed the sixth man, and overall he liked tonight's show. I don't know if you watched the same show I did. I'm sure he didn't. He says it's tough to do 3 hours every week. No one does that at all. They're all over the world. They can do magic with a lot of help and a lot of people behind the scenes. Performers have to be ready whether they're hurt or not, and they don't have any sleep. Austin says he got fired up from being around the show and enjoyed his run. Austin said he'd like to see more in-ring action. Is he wrong in wanting that? Vince says in order to care about the match, you have to care about the performer. Austin says there's a different vibe in the locker room now. There's no other options. He does mention TNA, but by and large he says there's no other options. He doesn't mention Jeff Jarrett at all. That's interesting. Global Force Wrestling was not in this at all. TNA was, but GFW was not. Interesting. People are walking on eggshells in the back, not trying to piss anyone off. Makes perfect sense, right? If you piss people off, there goes your career. So you can get blacklisted, like Colt Cabana has been, at least for the WWE. Vince says don't piss anyone off. And Austin's like, well, I've done that a lot. And Vince's like, yeah, I know you have. And he's like, well, you know what? Your crew's not as ambitious. And the last person to really reach for that brass ring is John Cena. No, I'm sorry about that. I think Zack Ryder did that, and of course he kind of got stopped. And I know Dolph Ziggler does that, and he's kind of there. He said there's some people chomping at a bit, like Bryan Ambrose and Roman Reigns. I don't know why they've mentioned Roman Reigns here. They should have been mentioning Cesaro, but we'll talk about Cesaro in a minute. There's not as much camaraderie and laughter as there was before. It seems a lot more business-like than it used to be. They're millennials, and there's an insecurity no one wants to fail. They have the tools, being social media, but they don't use them like guys like Austin did. Zack Ryder did just that, and he had a nice little run because of it. But it also was the reason why he failed. Which sucked, because Zack Ryder is awesome. Regardless of what anybody says. Austin thinks it needs more depth on the roster. Makes complete sense to me. Vince does agree. He says he's asked all the time how to get in the business and how to get to the top. Vince says he's looking for charisma, heart, work ethic, and innate skills. Zack Ryder. And you want verbal and physical skills, but you want to have the passion for this business, and once you find that, you put them in the right environment, and then you build and have a star. Austin says he saw a match backstage at Madison Square Garden. A guy got a huge pop. Vince looked at Austin at the time and said, yeah, I really hope he gets over. Austin said Vince doesn't have a magic wand to get someone over. Makes perfect sense. Austin sits back and he's getting ready to ask about somebody, obviously. Vince says the audience can make or break a star. If they don't believe in them, they won't get over. Hey crowd, if you don't believe in certain guys, they're not going to be on your television all the time. So if you're not behind them, they're not going to be getting over. So there you go. Austin asked point blank about Antonio Cesaro. Vince says he doesn't have charisma or verbal skills. Vince obviously has not seen any of his indie work, I'm pretty sure. Especially his Shikara stuff, like the Kings of Wrestling stuff, and any of the independents, the stuff with Chris Hero. But I'm sure he really wants to see Chris Hero right now. The audience needs to care and feel your presence, and you need to project that, but at the moment he lacks it. Well, when he was getting put over by slamming the Big Show over the top rope in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania 30, I think he had it quite well. I think he had it quite well when he was the one that was going to break out of the Real Americans. And instead of turning him babyface and do the Colossal Connection thing with having him turn on Swagger and Coulter, go on a short run, and then sticking him on Lesnar, no, what you did was you turned him into a Paul Heyman guy, gave him as a mouthpiece, and he got lost in the shuffle. Which is pretty much exactly what he says. He was huge into Cesaro when he split from Zeb Coulter, which is what Austin said. And then he's paired with Heyman and back by himself. Now he's also lost in the shuffle, just like I said. Vince isn't certain what to do to further Cesaro's cause. He basically is not sure what to do about Cesaro. I got an idea. How about you push him? That's a good idea. He's not going to give up on Cesaro, and he's a great talent, but there's something missing. Yeah, something missing is a push. And faith, but there's always that. So backstage he saw people with paper in their hands, and in the old days there would be a two-man process by the swimming pool with Pat Patterson. How did it get so complicated? Vince says you have to change with the times. No one man has the answers. It's not a one-man show anymore, and the company has grown. It's a huge mammoth organization. Vince says Patterson would sit for hours booking shows until someone from the office came along and said, well, I'm going to push you in the pool. Nice rib right there. Apparently, the story about being pushed in the pool is one of the funniest things in the world, but he doesn't elaborate. Maybe he will the next time he's on Austin's podcast. The business is about fun. You have to have fun making fun. It's not fun all the time, Vince. It really isn't. Austin asks what happened when Shane pushed Vince into the pool, and Vince let out some expletives, turned red, and sank in the water. Vince said Shane got away, which is funny. He asked what happened to Shane McMahon. Shane is in Japan working with his family, and it was a mutual feeling for Shane to leave. I don't buy that at all. Family doesn't all get along all the time, and being a son or dad is not always easy, and having your wife in the business is not always a piece of cake. Yeah, in essence, Shane McMahon got Johnny Carson from WWE, and I'm not going to believe anything otherwise. And if you don't know what I mean by Johnny Carson was basically about ready to... he was enjoying himself, but he was hearing whispers about the fact that NBC was trying to force him out to bring in Jay Leno to take over The Tonight Show. And this is all on a brilliant HBO film called The Late Shift, which I love so much. And also a Bill Carter book called The Late Shift is what it's based off of. Well, they tried to push him out, and they succeeded in doing so, and they got him to retire early. So that's basically what they're trying to do. They got Shane out of the company by the Triple H and Stephanie show, which sucks, because Shane would have been a great person to take over the business. But that's null and void now. He went off to Japan. I don't blame him. So, Austin asked if Vince wanted Shane to be in the business. Vince wanted Shane and Stephanie to basically follow their own path, and he didn't push them to do anything with the business. They worked summers. Shane worked in the warehouse, and Shane wanted a raise. Vince wouldn't give it to him, so Shane found a better job, got a better paying increase for that. Vince loved being around his dad. He loved listening to him, but he wasn't always privy to his conversations. One time he heard that the president of AFTRA wanted a raise from his dad. His dad said no. The guy left. Vince thought it was awesome. 2 minutes later, he asked his dad what he was going to do. So when he walked out, he made Vince the announcer, and that's how he became the announcer. He just kind of lucked into it. Arnold Scotland was the first time that Vince did announcing, but he didn't really speak much. They kind of yep and nope and stuff like that. Pat Patterson and Antonino Rocca were also at the announce table. It kind of rotated a bit. So it was a nice little talk about the WWF back in the day and the WWF also. Austin then asks about the elephant in the room and says, yes or no, do you want to talk about CM Punk? Vince says he wants to apologize. In a big corporation, sometimes legal doesn't know what others are doing. The firing on his wedding day was coincidental. Yeah, I buy that. He said he had disgruntled employees in the past, and one day Punk may regret what he said, but he does hope one day to get back together with him. Yeah, I know. I know how he feels. He said that Austin, Warrior, Hogan, didn't mention Brett or Bruno, but they all made up eventually, and he's going to try to give the audience what they want. If they want Punk back, then maybe it'll happen someday. Austin said that he listened to the podcast, and he puts over Colt Cabana and the Art of Wrestling, which is awesome. Vince didn't listen to it at all. But he did say that he used a lot of expletives, and there were a number of things that were done from his point of view. And Vince goes, you know what, there's two sides to every story. Austin talks about when he walked out in 2002, when he was being asked to, without any build-up whatsoever, job out to Brock Lesnar in the King of the Ring qualifying match. So, Vince says Austin was hard-headed. And Austin admitted to being hard to deal with, but he still busted his ass every single day. Vince says so did Punk, and yes, he did. Austin said walking out at that point was the worst career decision he's ever made, and Austin says that Vince left him about 3 voice messages for that entire 8 months, and he never returned any of Vince's calls, just like Punk didn't. One day he got a card in the mail from Jim Ross. He talked to JR for 2 to 3 hours, and Ross was the in-between. He basically was the facilitator of Vince and Austin doing business yet again. Austin asked if there's someone that could help bridge the gap with Punk. Is there a Jim Ross on the horizon? And Vince says Punk lacks communication, and he's a loner. He said if there's someone like a JR, then maybe they might have been able to work things out, but the lack of communication with the company and with Punk was pretty much what did it over. Austin talks about being fined for walking out. Vince fined him $650,000. Austin's like, no, how about try $250,000? And Austin asks if he should have asked for $150,000. Vince says if you walk out on the company. Not only that, you're walking out on the fans just the same. You have to do something to make sure it doesn't happen again. Obviously, you're setting an example by basically making someone pay more. You have to make sure that the inmates don't run the asylum. Alright? Austin said when he left the company, he was running hard and fast, but let the wrestlers in the back know that he did pay a price for what he did. Vince said he deserved it in a joking manner. He said Austin did have communication skills with the rest of the talent, and it was well liked by the boys, but from a business standpoint, you have to have someone to work with. That makes him a little difficult and a little different from CM Punk. Sometimes he himself is introverted and shy. Austin's like, BS, there's no way. Vince said in like 10,000 people, that's fine. I'm on all day, every day. But about 6 or 7 people, I kind of like become a turtle. And next thing you know, I may be talking to the bartender because that's my person right there. And when Linda ran for Senate, he really was uncomfortable those times. He'd rather be invisible than in a small group of people than being in a large group of people where he obviously could be the center of attention. So Austin says one of the guys he apologized to is The Undertaker. He asked where, when, and why when it comes to Brock ending the streak. How, when, and why, not where, when, and why. Vince wants to mention that no one wants to give back more to the WWE than The Undertaker. He calls him Mark Calloway by name and says he knew when to give back. Vince asked who else possibly could Undertaker work with, and at that time, give back to someone else and be a star. There's a lot of guys Undertaker could have worked with if they really wanted to put the streak on someone. You really want to strap the rocket to somebody. I mean, this could have been a lot of different people. Bray Wyatt would have been a good option if they really wanted to push him, which it doesn't seem like they want to. Cesaro would have been a nice idea. I mean, there was really no one at the time they really could have put the streak on. I got an idea. How about you don't lose the streak if you don't have anyone built up? You don't bring in Brock Lesnar. It's pointless. I mean, he already took his ball and went home once. Why do you bring him back again? I'll tell you why. He's a box office talent. He's a proven box office talent. And people know who he is. Not just wrestling fans. So I do understand from that perspective, but it seemed like it still was the wrong thing to do. Austin's like, there's no way The Undertaker made the decision. And he's like, you're right, Vince did. So, Will, Vince did make the decision. So you can hate Vince McMahon now. You can stop hating Brock Lesnar because Brock just did what he was told to do. There you go. Vince said it was a shock to everybody and it's on me. Even he knew it was a bad idea. Those decisions aren't easy to make, but it seemed like to be the right decision at the time. Brock was hot, and this was a way to make him even hotter. Austin makes the statement, Brock isn't around. Why can't he be on TV anymore? And just like what Heyman said early on in the actual promo, Vince says Brock is a special attraction. His contract only allows a select number of dates, and he said the performer and the story, not just the championship, bring the people to the arena. I'm sure that the people would like to see a world title defended on your shows. Yeah, that might not be a bad idea. Austin asks if we're going to see Randy Savage in the Hall of Fame. Vince says absolutely, definitely, in those words. Austin says when. Vince says soon, but is not sure if it's going to be this year. Austin makes sure that does mean yes, and Vince says yes. Austin asks about Sting. Vince says, don't be surprised to see Sting at WrestleMania this year. It's pretty much going to happen regardless. He's one of those guys that's also a special attraction. Austin says he himself was on television every week, and Vince says, no, it's a different time now. Sting was on television every week for TNA, but you guys didn't watch that. Some of you did. Austin jokes about forgetting a lot of things in his career. It was hardcore competition during the Monday Night Wars. Austin says Ted Turner saying he was in the wrestling business. After 2 years, WWE wins, Ted Turner's out of business. Vince says he and Ted had a different business philosophy. Ted's philosophy did hurt the competition, and hurt it bad, and cripple it, so obviously he's the only one left standing. Vince's philosophy was, let's help us. The NWO was something new at the time, but to Vince it was a matter of time for WWE beat them because they had more passion. They had better people running the books at the times. He talked about towing the line and having control of what the talent does and not having the anarchy WCW did. Yeah, I agree with that. WCW was total anarchy at most times. The goal was not to put them out of business, but he did so anyway. Austin adds that Vince shot himself in the foot since there's no competition. With all due respect to TNA. Didn't mention Global Force Wrestling at all. They were going so hot and heavy it was just a matter of who was going to burn out first. They ran out of ideas, it was chaos, no dedication, they were worn out and they gave up. I think that Time Warner gave up on WCW before WCW gave up on WCW. Austin asked Vince about buying the business from his father, obviously. Vince put the territories out of business. Vince says, you know, they put themselves out of business. Vince went to Vern Gagne personally, and Linda talked to him about buying him out. Vern laughed it off and he didn't go anywhere. Vince said it had been a balloon payment. He had creative skills, the grapefruits, all yada yada yada. Vern was a multi-millionaire and Vince had nothing. The other promoters did have money, but they didn't put it into their business. What he did was reinvest the product with better production and getting Saturday night's main event and bringing people in from the outside. If you don't invest in it, it won't grow. Makes perfect sense. Austin asked if they can still build stars without competition. Vince mentions Bray Wyatt. I like how he's mentioning Bray Wyatt a lot. That's awesome. NXT is the source they have. Territories put themselves out of the business with the exception of Cowboy Bill Watts. Bill's street smart. Jim Crockett wasn't the brightest of the brightest branch in the tree, or on the tree in this case, but it didn't really understand the business. That's the reason that Crockett failed. Cable was down 10% last year across the board because there's so many new things out there, and WWE's competition is anything on television. Football, Dancing with the Stars, pick whatever you want to put, what they're facing off with. So Austin mentions Jim Ross no longer being with WWE. He asks personally if there's any heat there. Vince says there's not any heat, talks about the incident where Jim Ross was supposed to babysit Ric Flair, and that didn't really work out, and apparently Ross was drunk. You've heard the story, you know exactly. It happened in LA, the promotion for SummerSlam with the WWE video game at the time. He's not going to go into it. He said it's unprofessional and very unlike the Jim Ross that he knew. He's not sure if they will ever get back together. Austin says Jim Ross is one of the brightest guys he's ever heard when it comes to the knowledge of the business. Very true. Vince says Ross wanted to leave Connecticut and go back to Oklahoma. Ross paid his dues, but JR worked hard and contributed greatly, and JR decided to go back to Oklahoma and take it easy. Vince says it takes 24/7. 7 days a week, you can't do it half-ass, and JR, Austin, and so many others contributed greatly. Austin asks about the feud with Vince. Vince says that the Stone Cold character was Vince, and asks about the chemistry between the two. Vince understood, though. He said no one thinks of Vince that way. Vince grew up in a trailer park, things were different, he understands the common man. It's weird. Vince says he's still the same guy, and that's how he thinks, and the audience is also the common man with white and blue collar fans. It starts out with kids 2 to 11, all the way to fans his age. You have to have something for everyone. Common sense to understand just how people think. When a kid that he was growing up pretended they were better because he had money, it drove him nuts. He understood the psychology of all this. Vince said he's the Stone Cold character on the inside. Vince wanted to be the guy that he despised, though. So, Austin says we're going to have to wrap it up in a couple of seconds. Vince goes and says one of the most awesome things ever. He's like, you know what, I own the network, so we're going to go another 15 minutes. So we're going to continue that. And that was awesome of Vince to actually do that. Austin's working punches are brutal, apparently. Vince was uncoordinated. Austin wasn't able to do the stunner the first time. You know, the one where he did it on Raw is War, where Vince didn't sell it the right way. Austin was wearing tight jean shorts, and there was magic going out there with Austin, but there's no way to really describe it. Vince always wanted to be a pro wrestler, but his dad wouldn't let him do it. So Vince sometimes was really hokey about it, but he was asked about his mindset getting in the ring. His dad said Vince couldn't have it both ways. He couldn't be both a wrestler and a businessman. But later on, when Vince was the businessman, he still had that opportunity, and he always wanted to be a performer. So he was glad he took it because it was one of the greatest thrills of his life. Vince pitched the ringmaster idea. Vince didn't see a superstar in him. That was clear. But he became Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he got over. Austin said he loved to work heel because he had but he still had massive success as a babyface. And then they did the double turn with Bret at WrestleMania. Vince says it's about psychology. People don't like the truth being used against them. It's about having the ability to portray the Mr. McMahon character. He said when he had the opportunity to get in there with Austin, it was a dream come true. Austin talked about the match at St. Valentine's Day Massacre when Vince bumped off the cage on the table and it broke. He hit the edge of the table, and that, of course, is the worst possible place you can hit a table. A big bruise over both of his cheeks to the back of his knee, but he wouldn't trade it for anything. Austin bled at WrestleMania 13 in the match against Bret Hart because he found out he was getting a much bigger pop than most of the faces at the time. The double turn, Austin was talking about going over the match beforehand, and Austin thought they would stink the joint up, so he wanted to bleed. Brett wanted him to bleed, basically, and it made perfect sense given the fact that Austin's not a submission wrestler, and he knew this. Austin double-checked with Vince. Vince said, I'll tell you it'll work, and Austin and Brett have the match. Austin bleeds. JR and Lawler are calling it with Vince, and Vince is then asked about if he's mad about the blood. He said we can rewrite history, but he was sure a little bit pissed off, but it's all about what the audience wants. He wants. Nose is itching. I apologize. It was against company policy to bleed at the time, but he listened to the audience, even though that Austin and Brett broke the rules. Is Vince still tuned in and still listening to the universe? And what is the future? Vince says ratings are not what they used to be when WCW was around. Yeah, no lie. But they're holding their own and they can get better. Let's hope so. It's more segmented now and more back and forth. Vince says there's no question. But there's a lot of other factors that go into it. You have to reach the audience with short attention span theater, obviously. He always wants to make the product better, but he himself says he's not out of touch. Austin asks how the fans can voice their concerns. Austin says, basically throws out the Twitter accounts of Vince McMahon himself and WWE, and Vince is like, oh, why'd you do that, Steve? Vince said he listens to the audience, but not critics. Do they listen to the audience that are critics? Is there an email? Vince like, there's social media. And then, of course, when are you going to ride off to the sunset? Vince says he's healthy and it's 69 years old. Dude, he enjoys the business and hasn't lost any steps mentally. He might be 70. I don't have it here. He hasn't lost a step mentally and physically, but he's out of touch. People that say he's out of touch are just critics. You have to try different things. He does mention NXT by name. He says this is a start, but there's hopefully more things we can talk about in the future. This was awesome, because this was a way to introduce Vince McMahon to people that don't know who Vince McMahon is. Like these newer fans that don't know anything about Vince McMahon, they know just Mr. McMahon, the ruthless boss and tyrant of WWE. No, this was to introduce Vince McMahon. He didn't get thrown any softballs. He knocked everything out of the park. Basically, this was a really great interview. And if WWE Network are going to put this stuff, these kind of interviews on their programming, I have a great feeling that subscriptions for the network will double and triple when it comes to people wanting to see this. These are must-see interviews. This was a must-see interview, and if you missed this, hopefully you have a way to see it somehow, because this was great. Absolutely great. If you're a longtime wrestling fan, a lot of odes to old-time wrestling fans, a lot of odes to new-school wrestling fans. I mean, Vince talked about everything. He talked about Savage, he talked about Punk, he talked about The Undertaker's streak getting ended by Brock Lesnar. He talked about everything you'd want him to ask. And Austin asked all the hard-hitting questions. He proved that he was an amazing interviewer, and that's the reason why Stone Cold Steve Austin is not just a throwaway podcaster like some of the wrestling podcasts we have out nowadays. I'm not going to mention any names, but I do know that there are some that are kind of throwaway. These actually work. Stone Cold is a great interviewer, and Steve Austin himself actually put on a great interview with Vince McMahon, in an interview that no one else could have done. Just like how CM Punk could have only told his story to Colt Cabana. Makes perfect sense. Stone Cold Steve Austin only could have got this out of Vince McMahon himself. So yeah, that was really entertaining, very enjoyable, and yeah, if you get a chance to check it out, please do. So yeah, that's the video for this week, and that's wrestling content on Pop for the next 2 weeks. So yeah, I'll return for actually less than 2 weeks, because I'll be back for TLC. That's 2 days after one day after I return to town. So yeah, I get back on that Friday, and Saturday's a movie day. Sunday will be TLC. So I got that, and I don't know what it is if your nose keeps itching. I don't know if somebody's thinking about you, talking about you, something like that. I want to research because it's driving me nuts. But I will state right now that that was Raw in a nutshell, and the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast in a nutshell. So that was pretty much verbatim what was said, if you will. Like, I paraphrased a few things, but it's basically what was said. So, NXT TakeOver, Our Evolution is coming up on Friday, December 11th, which, as long as everything works out, I will be in attendance for. And obviously, I'm going to be in Orlando starting tomorrow, so you're going to get a lot of Orlando content, Disney content, Universal content, perhaps more, and perhaps some special guests will be joining me. You got a brand new Sip and Snack coming at your way, and we'll also have brand new vlogs of randomness. I'm going to have videos from the airport. We'll have a hotel room video from my room at Bay Lake Tower, and my room at Pop Century, and my room at Cabana Bay Beach Resort. A lot of content coming next couple weeks, so if you're a wrestling fan and you want to see more of the pop stuff, obviously it's still coming. AJ and Ashley will be joining us on Friday and Sunday, as always, for AJ, and Saturday for Ashley. So yeah, don't worry, they're not going anywhere. Even though I'm in Florida, they're still going to be giving you content. So in the meantime, if you like these videos, tell your friends about them, leave a comment, do subscribe, help spread the word about pop. If you haven't yet, go to Facebook, click like on our Facebook fan page, it's Suro and Disney Pop. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it's at Suro and Disney. And if you'd like to send me a friend request on Facebook, it's Owen Disney. If you'd like to talk wrestling with me, or Disney, Universal, Halloween Horror Nights, you want to ask me travel questions, ask me regular questions, have sip and snack ideas, versus ideas, vlog of randomness ideas, or if you just like to chat, or if you would like to become a podcaster yourself, send me an email, suroanddisney@gmail.com. So in the meantime, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. And wrestling fans, I'll join you in a bit, but until tomorrow, boys and girls, that's all I got to say about that.